Where are the speakers? Oh, hello. Hello, Orlando. How many people are from Orlando? Nerd. No. How many people are from cold places? Yeah, yep. Pretty happy to be here. All right, so let's make sure we're all set up. Everybody see everything okay? This is the, I changed the title. This is the Get Started with Kinvey talk. I tried to call it NPM I Kinvey Node SDK, but supposedly it doesn't it's very sticky. And that is actually one of the first things you do to incorporate incorporate Kinvey into your Node project is install it with NPM. I thought I was being funny, but it turns out I was just being very confusing. So what are we going to talk about in this talk? We're going to discuss first why Kinvey exists, why we need Kinvey, and what it is that helps us with the why. So we'll talk about the why, we'll talk about the what, and then we'll dig into how. And it's basically the makeup of Kinvey, so like the really deep guts of Kinvey, of how it helps you do the things that you need it to do. And then we'll talk about who uses Kinvey and what they use it for. And during all of this, I'm going to be showing you some code examples as we go along and talk about each thing. One thing to keep in mind is that Kinvey, one of the great things about Kinvey is there's a lot of low code and no code options to it. We'll discuss that more, but you'll see we'll be going through the console a bit, the Kinvey console, and we'll be looking at the different applications we use to build applications. So like the different kind of drag and drop, WYSIWYG applications we use. And then at the end, I'm gonna show you the code of how to integrate Kinvey into a Node application, and then take you even further into the console for Kinvey, so you can see what your dev environment would look like. Oh, my slides are advancing for me. Great. So this is me. My name is Tara Miniksik. I am a developer advocate for Progress, yes. And I'm on the Kinvey team, and I am a Google developer expert, working with web technologies, mostly bases on JavaScript, because I really love JavaScript. And that is something that you probably would hear nobody say about 5 years ago, but it turns out we're allowed to say that now. It's even kind of cool. I actually started out as a Node software engineer for a platform as a service, whom we shall not name. And I did a lot of work creating billing and checking logs for our API, connecting to our API, testing a lot of things, debugging on our, it wasn't serverless then, we were actually on servers. Which we still are, just to be clear. But a lot of what I had to work with could have been a lot easier if I had Kinvey. So it's interesting to go into this work now and see all the capabilities that Kinvey brings you that I really could have used a few years back. So yes, this is a picture of me, which is hilarious because I'm standing right in front of you, right next to it. You probably don't really need it. And this is my awkward dog, Tosh Magosh, that is now sadly replaced, well, sad for her, by a 4-month-old that is in the pool right now. But then you can find pictures of her and then also actual important technological information at TZ Mannix on Twitter. And I'll have my slides posted there as well. So when we think about the why of Kinvey, why it came across, you'll hear, we think about disruption. And you hear this word a lot. It's a very prevalent word. We hear it a lot. It may even be overused, some may say. But it's because it's a very important thing that needs to take place in our industry. Oh, stop it. I'm not quite sure how to turn that off. I found a new functionality in PowerPoint where it lets you rehearse the timing of your slides. And then they're like, if you want to keep it, you keep it and then it advances the slides for you. And I thought I turned it off, but I think it's like, no, keep going, you're boring people. So, disruption. I have a few cases of disruption that was actually brought to me by my coworker TJ over here to kind of take into consideration what's happening in our industry now. So CBRE, they're a real estate company, and they're pretty well known, but they're getting some competition or disruption now from WeWork. And this company basically is helping technology startup subcultures find office spaces. And this is anywhere from really small, like entrepreneurial people that may need a desk or 2 desks, all the way up to large enterprises that need whole buildings or whole buildings for party spaces. But the thing that they're doing is taking advantage of technology to manage their facilities in interesting ways, but also they make just the initial part of it super easy, where you go to their website and it's like, I have 20 people and I need an office. And they're like, here's a couple offices. So they're making that entry into it extremely easy by having applications that are specific to their users' needs. And then we have a company like Bose. So everybody heard of Bose, right? It's because they make really great products, really unmatched quality. But quality doesn't matter anymore. I'm just kidding. Quality still matters. But it's also on top of making quality products, you have companies like Apple and Amazon who are giving your users applications to make the music that they want available to them, how they want it and when they want it, basically making it easier for users to access what they need with music. So you have that disruption in that matter. And then there is this company, Cisco. Probably not the Cisco you thought you'd hear about today. And also, I saw this logo up front and I was like, oh, I don't recognize that. But if you look at this logo back here, this is the logo I remember from like road trips 20 years ago. So that's the Cisco that has these like really great relationships with big companies and like hotel chains, restaurants, hospitals. They have a lot of connections to do high volume shipments. But companies like Amazon and Costco now have these warehouses that are strategically located in areas that have technology applications in their warehouses to make it easier to deliver shipments more personalized, faster, all based on, they're even having machines that are doing all the picking of the orders for them, right? So they're taking advantage of all of these applications. So this disruption is happening, that's 3 different industries right there. So how does Kinvey help you with this? Kinvey is basically a modern platform that is helping you rapidly build complex enterprise apps and scalable consumer apps experiences. They're doing a lot to help you make these multi-channel enterprise level applications more specific to what your user wants. And when you're able to make them faster, you are able to deliver what the customer needs right then. So you're building on a modern serverless platform and it gives you this like native digital experience for your users, but it lets you utilize your existing IT solutions. So, how often do you see this new technology coming out when you're like, oh, I want microservices. Oh, I want to do a PWA. I want to go about these things in the new modern way. But you have a whole mature code base. You have all of your data, in a certain, in SAP, in Salesforce. You want to be able to utilize that, even though you want to be able to use this modern technology. Kinvey. No. So that's where Kinvey steps in. And not only is it helping you do all of these things, but it does it with also low-code and no-code solutions like I talked about earlier, which helps give your engineers the time to focus on innovating instead of iterating over the same code to do the same things over and over again in your applications. I'm going to tag that innovating, not iterating thing, so nobody steal that. So this is what it looks like to create an application. It's just one click of a button. You name that application. You can pick an organization if you want to, and then you click Create App, and the infrastructure is spun up. And you see we'll go into detail on that console later, but that's as quickly as it is to spin up an application and an infrastructure inside of Kinvey. I'm sorry, these slides. One thing that I realized was that I couldn't make an application named Progress Next inside of the Progress organization, because it turns out someone had already used that. I don't know, maybe for this conference or something. So that was pretty fun to find out. Next, I want to talk about what makes up Kinvey. And here, I want to talk about these 3 core parts of Kinvey, including Kinvey Studio, Kinvey Chat, and Kinvey Micro Apps. Starting out with Kinvey Studio. Kinvey Studio is a really, we just came out with this recently, and it's a really great way to basically build out professional enterprise level apps for web and mobile, and have chat on there as well, without taking up too many engineering hours. It's really speeding up development, because I'll show you what it looks like. Oh, thanks, computer. Basically, this is another demo that my coworker TJ put together. You're able to build out the application and add views, and then populate it with the collections that you have inside of Kinvey's backend. And then you can put all the information you want, and then see how it emulates on the phone and on web if need be. So it's basically kind of a drag and drop editor process. And you're getting, again, this high productivity tool for building multi-channel applications, and you can quickly build many applications for multiple platforms. And that's what really helps you spin up more designated and specific applications for your users and your users' needs as they come about. Because how often do you have that where a user comes in and they say, actually, I know that you have this application here, but I really need something that, lists all of my clients right there on this home screen. You spin that up just like in the few seconds that he did that right there, you can build an application like that. And this is how it looks on web, on iOS, and on Android. Oh yeah, you gotta look for the notch to know which one's iOS, right? So, and it's native on these. That's one thing that's really important to remember, that you're building on top of this very developer-friendly technologies like JavaScript and Angular. And then also Progress's own NativeScript, which if you're interested in NativeScript, I hear there's a few talks on NativeScript that you'll be able to find at this conference. But once you build out on those familiar tools, it will give you a native iOS, Android, or Android app. Speaking of Kinvey Studio, there is a talk. Oh, I sprinkled in some talks to help guide you through the Kinvey landscape of this conference. And one of them is Getting Started with Kinvey Studio from Todor. And that is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So the next thing we want to talk about is Kinvey Chat. How many people out there are working with chatbots already? Oh, interesting. How many people have talked to a chatbot and they didn't know it? No. I feel like I get text messages from my mom that I'm like, is this a chatbot? But there are some really, really great uses for a chatbot that I didn't even consider until working with Kinvey Chat. So not only can you do it in situations that you might be used to, like customer service, getting information from a user before you connect them to an actual person, but think about how often you're using forms in your applications. And if you have the ability to make it more personal and talk to a person, hi, I'm so-and-so from Kinvey, what's your name? They have their name, now you have username. Oh, what's your phone number in case we need to reach you? Sometimes I know I get really angry at forms, which is probably unhealthy. But because, so often you're filling in the same information. So if you're able to go through a chat bot, talk to a person through, and save their information that you can use to populate your forms, it gives you a little bit easier experience. And also think about navigation through your website. If people are going to your website and just going, I don't know, I just want to submit this expense, I don't know where I'm supposed to go, do I click on this thing, do I click on payroll, where am I supposed to go? Instead, you have a chatbot ping up that's saying, hey, what would you like to do today, and navigating them through your site. Kinvey Chat also lets you do this in multiple languages. It understands natural conversation in 72 languages. And what's really exciting is it is also adaptable and cognitive. So it will learn for you without using that engineering time to do that. Here's a little look at an example. I think TJ showed this morning of walking through a claim for auto insurance accident. And on the left you see is the first screen that you go through to set up the chatbot. So the first thing you do is basically select a language, and that drop-down has those multiple languages. And you can start out with an example and even watch a demo of that example before giving your bot a name and getting started with it. So you see he's able to even say yesterday on this application, and it will take into account what the date is today and do that logic for you. And it gives you the ability to, so sorry about these slides. I'll redo this talk for you if you want, without that slide progression, if you have an extra 45 minutes. So this is what the code looks like when you step into the dashboard for chatbots. You're able to see that here it's giving you a few example starts of conversations. And then there's up top the training, history, analytics, channels, and publishing. And you can even go through and emulate it. So there is, I have a note to mention that there is going to be Messenger, Alexa, and Google Home support coming soon. I probably should have made that a more like drum roll announcement, right? That was pretty exciting. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's this stuff coming that's pretty cool. He'll probably talk about it more. Sebi Wittelick is giving a talk at 2:45, and he's also doing a workshop. This is a presentation, but there's a workshop later today that will walk you through creating a chatbot. It's worth looking into. They get pretty fun. Once it gets a little addictive too, so just be warned that you'll have a chatbot for everything. Every email you get becomes a chatbot conversation. The next part is Kinvey micro apps. And I'm really excited about micro apps because I believe in kind of modularizing everything that you do. And that's basically what micro apps does for your large applications. So if you have an application where, say, it's an HR application for your users, so they can go in and they can submit expense reports, they can ask for time off, they can say they need a new computer, all in one application. Sometimes that can get quite daunting for your users because they have to go in and navigate to okay, is this part under payroll, or am I doing this under a different tab? And what is my what's my authentication for a user in this part of the application? Does it stay for the next part of the application? There's a lot of spider webs that we get through with these really big applications. And micro apps helps you deal with that by breaking down each of these into smaller applications that are more specific to your user. And what this really helps with is, again, being able to update and modernize your applications as you see fit. Because, again, it's this smaller piece that isn't connected to so many different pieces that if you break, say you break billing, and then now your data visualizations don't work, it's too connected. So now you're able to parse these apart. And this is what it looks like on the screen. You make a container app that all your micro apps will live inside. And you can just, like we did with creating an app in the Kinvey console, name it, pick the organization. And then once that's created, you can pick micro apps to go inside of that container. So you see we did a pre-built micro app there. So we have 6 of them here, like I said, doing time off, requesting a new machine, and even creating new sales leads that you can hook up to like Salesforce and whatnot. So once these are created, you can do multiple ones in there. And as you click on the micro app to update it, you just publish it to the container, and that information gets pushed to your users without having to go through a whole update process. So there is a whole talk on that. That is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Nichelle is going to walk you through 30 minutes in creating a business or an enterprise mobile portal with the micro apps. And it's a really interesting process to watch because it's a very, the way that they built out the templates, it's a very well laid out, well designed application, and you never have to touch one part of CSS, which I think is just the best part of anything. So next is how Kinvey does this. So I want to dig into basically the guts of Kinvey, how we get all of these great applications to do all the work for you. So microservices, I wanted to do this right after micro apps because they kind of have the same essence to them. Is anybody familiar with microservice architecture? Nice, okay. So just kind of quick overview. Again, microservice architecture is like what we were talking about with micro apps. The antonym of microservices is a monolithic app. And that, again, is an application that just has, you might see it as one GitHub repo that just has all the parts of your application in one. And they're all tied together in some way, whereas microservices are smaller, different structures that will maybe make API calls to each other. And that way, they're not so connected that they could break one another, or, again, fixing one thing will break something in another code base. Not only does Kinvey believe in building out applications and helping you by giving you microservices throughout your application, they're also built as microservices. So Kinvey is built using Node. I think Node is fantastic, and so does Kinvey. So they built all of Kinvey using this microservice architecture, which makes it really great for scaling, really great, again, for maintenance, and also for deploying and building, because you're basically deploying and scaling all of these microservices. And again, Kinvey gives you the ability to do microservice framework with no code and low code, thanks to their rapid services and their flex services, to support enterprise systems and authentication providers, which we'll look at here. So I just want you to read this whole slide. I'm just kidding. I put this here because this is part of our documentation. And I wanted to show you kind of the support that you get through our documentation to help guide you through setting these low and no code things up. Because if you're like me, I was very used to having to check in with APIs and writing all of the CRUD to basically make all the requests to APIs as I went. The rapid services, we have rapid data and rapid auth that are basically a few clicks away from setting up data that you have already built up either in like SAP or Salesforce or some API like REST APIs. And we'll look more into that in a bit as well. So again, we're working with a serverless backend here, and that gives you the ability to scale rapidly. And we do all of the auto scaling for you on demand so that you don't have to worry about that low level development and infrastructure of like figuring out, okay, every day I get about 2 users, but then I just got like Hacker News just put something up about my site and all of a sudden I have 2,000 users every minute. Congratulations. But your service, unless you had, unless you were able to auto scale, you're probably not going to be able to handle that. And I have a Node talk in a few hours too, where I talk a little bit more about Node handling auto scaling. but we take care of that for you. You don't even have to go to that talk if you want to be on Kinvey, because you don't need to know any of that stuff. It's like basically being able to be on this cloud platform gives you a lot of freedom for that vertical scaling. So speaking of clouds, we will talk about cloud services. On Kinvey, we have a bunch of services that you have through the cloud, like your file store and data integration thanks to rapid data. You have cloud caching, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. Enterprise Identity Connect and operational intelligence. Some really great things that help you get to that enterprise level with their cloud services. So cloud functions. Does anybody have a clear understanding of what cloud functions are? Okay, 2 people. I hear cloud functions all the time, and in my head I was always like, yeah, I know what that is. It's just like a function that does something. Well, that's not really an explanation of anything. Like, that's what a function is. So I wanted to give you a more clear understanding, and this is basically, it's a simple single-purpose function that are attached to events emitted from your cloud infrastructure and services. So this is very, it's like automatically running back-end code in response to events that are triggered without you having to manage the server or the runtime environment. So you're just saying, hey, when this happens, run this code for me, and I'm going to be hands-off. Do you think is that okay? Yeah. You can come up here if you want and give another. I'm serious. I wouldn't mind at all. I would actually appreciate it. But the framework, so we have cloud functions set up. And again, how we say it here are they're small atomic and stateless responses to events in the cloud. And we do it on like pre-save, on post-fetch. And I'll show you how we set those up when we go to the console as well. We also have cloud caching. And again, this is our documentation on the cloud caching. This is basically in response because it came into existence because we're impatient people. Like, nobody wants to wait a long time to get information, to have that data load. So we started caching things so we get quicker response times for our users. And we do this basically by, we basically save a copy of we have a cached version of your data that we maintain so that the user will get that immediately. And so we make your response time much faster with that cached version. And enabling it is really simple through the console. If you want to have us start caching your data, you just have to use one of the data services that we have, like our Flex data or our Rapid data, and then you simply click a button. It's actually a switch, but still. It's as easy as that, and it's really nice. I read those instructions, and I went and I was like, all right, let's see what's the follow-up to this, but you really do go in and you just switch a button. So it's really nice to have that because we all want our applications to be much faster for our users. So if you can set it up that easily, even better. Oh, I'm running a little behind. So pre-existing data, I talked about this a bit before, where you are able to use the data that you have already. So we provide a modern JavaScript API on top of your data to allow you to use these things with sub-second safe and secure access and response time. And we're talking about SAP, Oracle, SQL Server, Salesforce, and many more. And it's letting you leverage your data that you may have not had access to on, say, your mobile applications before. You can do that now with Kinvey. We focus all of that on with our Kinvey data pipeline. So this is like an end-to-end data and auth management from your device to your source enterprise systems. And they make sure that it's virtualized and synchronized data and authentication layers to keep you secure from disparate enterprise systems. which I think is hilarious. Anyway, but this includes the cloud caching like we talked about, offline data management with Delta synchronization, which is nice, identity integrations, and is that low code and no code that we discussed before. And these are all of the services that we cover. So that's up top, all of the data sources that you can attach to using the no code connectors. And then below that is the authentication interfaces that, again, you're not using code. Has anybody tried to hook up OAuth 2 lately? It's fun, right? Yeah. Which I've actually we have a lot of services to make it a lot easier now. It can be a headache. So with this, you don't even have to write code, which is very nice. This is basically setting up a service for rapid data. So you just go through that into the service connection, click into a new service, hit rapid data, and then click on, say, so this one is using Salesforce. Then you go through and this is just a name that you're choosing for this service. And then you can add a description if you like, and then you say you just want it to be scoped to the app that you want to use it with, but you can do it with the organization, so it's available for all your applications. Then from Salesforce, you want to get the information for your host, and then if you're going to do a service account authentication, you want your username and your password set through from Salesforce. So it gets that information from Salesforce, it hooks it up, it has that data saved, and now it says that to set it up, you can just hit discover and find all of the information it has in that Salesforce that you just hooked up to. So in this one, it actually finds 363 items. So you can pick a specific one. So this one they chose account, and they labeled it account. And now you can see all the operations that are supported, and you can choose which ones you want to initialize with that data. Then you can add these items and also add field mappings, which is nice. So you can customize every piece of data that's coming through. How do you want it to come through on your application through Kinvey? So it's nice to be able to customize that so specifically. So that's how you would set up Salesforce, but that's pretty much the gist of how you set up most of those data connectors as well. So here you see they add that service to their application, they hit refresh, and now they're getting all of those accounts from Salesforce into their application. So next I want to talk about built-in compliance quickly. Does anybody here work with HIPAA compliance? HIPAA compliance is hard. Oh, nice. So we have built-in HIPAA compliance on our I think we have a new name for it now. Isn't it like mHealth or something health? Well, we have HIPAA compliance. But we also have GDPR compliance, as well as other ways that we make sure that we have built-in compliance for the things that you need. I think we have a few sessions on that as well that I'll talk about after this. Very importantly, security. Kinvey puts a lot of time and a lot of care into security because, we have all your applications and all your user information. Security is very important. So just inside of the applications and communications, you can read these in the slides later, but and I'll post the slides up from my Twitter account after this. Basically, you see that they're looking to add encryption to make sure your user authentication and revocation is easy to manage and there for you to deal with your application, as well as security testing, audit trails, and application communication encryption. But then we also go on the level of securing the Kinvey platform services. So we want to make sure that each layer is being taken care of. So with this part, we always employ the best practices and secure our mobile services running on our multi-tenant and dedicated cloud instances. So you see we do audits, we protect against intrusions, and I have a talk in here on security as well. But we even go as far as our infrastructure providers, Amazon and Microsoft Azure. We make sure that they have their physical security, their compliance certifications, and data backup, retention, and recovery. So we try to cover ourselves in all the ways that we can. There are 3 talks that I highly recommend that have to do with these few things that we just discussed. And that is Best Practices for Modern App Architects by Mike Salinger, and that is Friday at 11:30. How to Make Your Mobile App Shine Offline with Kinvey, and that is today at 3:45, and that's we'll be covering the different offline strategies and different caching. And then this one, which I'm also really excited about, and I told him I was going to tell everybody to go to his talk because he's really nervous. And that's the security and compliance risks with cloud and app deployments. But his talk is, he's been working for Kinvey, like doing security in Kinvey for over 8 years. And he talks about just different ways to combat like malware, phishing, DDoS, and botnets, which are things that unfortunately we have to deal with all the time. And he likes to give you certain strategies to combat those things. So I highly recommend that talk. So I want to dig into a bit about who uses Kinvey. And one of the first ones I want to touch on is Canopy Health. And so basically this is a healthcare provider that's working with patients in the Bay Area, and they basically decided that they wanted to make the process much easier for their users, and to do that they wanted them, it's a patient-centric provider, so they wanted to make sure that they could carry out tasks with their mobile devices. So they were able to kind of make a whole digital ecosystem and make it mobile first kind of mindset for their patients using this. And you can see the numbers here. They were able to get a short-term and long-term vision for their healthcare space and save a bunch of money. That's the numbers that matter, right? Is that money stuff. So that's where they really found the best advantages was with Kinvey and using us for our HIPAA compliance. We also have Schneider Electric. So they were looking to reduce their DevOps overhead and also do some really awesome things with the IoT devices. Since we run on Node, Node has a really great way of handling the like high I/O schematics, because it's non-blocking, and it's like basically on an event loop that helps you get more information in and out faster. So that's really handy for IoT in particular. But Schneider Electric basically had 50 different product lines with operations in more than 100 countries across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So they wanted to be able to reduce the cost and improve customer satisfaction. And so their solution was to provide a mobile innovation platform and basically improve their efficiency and reduce time to market. So you being able to use Kinvey at the heart of the company's new mobile innovations platform, they were able to basically up their development time, create what their users needed, and bring more value to the critical aspects, or like bring more of the critical needs that their company had to get to their customers. I'm trying to squeeze a lot of things into this time I have for you. Okay, so real quick, one more company, Bell Howell. Basically, they needed to bring in a lot of their information from SAP, and we helped them build out a larger and more efficient mobile service without building their engineering team. That's the TLDR. So that we can go into coding. So I want to show you real quick what it looks like to integrate Kinvey into your Node application. So this is your package.json for a Node application. I actually wanted to show you this. This is a starter project that I built that you can just clone every time you need to make a new Node application that has Kinvey in it. The only dependency we have down here, this is, if you wondered, when does the name of the talk come into play? It's right here. So this is where you're installing the Kinvey Node SDK. And then you'll have your main file in your application that pulls in the Kinvey SDK and also requires a config that will have your information for Kinvey, which I'll show you in a second. And then you just initialize Kinvey with that configuration information. The next thing that you can do is ping to make sure that you are getting the information you need, you're connecting correctly to Kinvey. And this is all the information you need from Kinvey, is your app key and your app secret, which I now will have to delete that project. I'm sorry? Not a secret anymore. Exactly, yes. This is a public secret. No. So real quick, I will show you. Is it going? So, oh, come on. So this is the post I have that will help you get started. Sorry, PowerPoint is crashing. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to show you the console real quick, because that's more interesting anyway. So that was just walking you through everything that I have covered in a blog post that you can look at later anyway. Go away, PowerPoint. Apologies. There we go. So this is what the front of the, like right when you get into the console on Kinvey, you have all your applications listed there for you. And as you can see, you are able to have different environments here. And what's nice is you can easily basically clone the environments and put all your information over straight from, you know, development into staging, staging into production, etc. You basically just go in, say the parts that you want to. Okay, and the internet. Oh, great. Well, let's just look at this. So over here on the left-hand side, we only have like 2 minutes anyway. It's where you can manage your users, set up your mobile identity connect, and this again is that one click to set it up, put the information in, say from Facebook or Google Plus, if anyone uses that anymore, and other connections for your MIC, your mobile identity connect. And then you can assign roles, you can manipulate and add and connect data here in your collections, which will give all the data to your applications. You can drag and drop files in. If you have static files you need to add to your application, which I found super handy because I know frameworks in general make it really hard to deal with files. The API console is another one of my favorites because it lets you hit up your APIs to make sure the responses you're getting back are correct, but then you can save all of the requests that you put through, any of the delete, post, puts, and gets on your API and on your collection. Then this is where you can add the business logic of the collection hooks that are pre-fetch, pre-save, post-fetch, etc., as well as add custom endpoints for users to hit to make certain code come through, as well as common code that you could just add code specifically in there, and schedule code. So if you have jobs that you want to run on a daily basis to get user information, to get product information, you can put that in there and have that hook up to run at any certain time of the day. You also have the ability to send push notifications through here. I wish I could click on this because it's cool. You can just drag in the file to hook up an iOS push notification, and then your Android comes from the Firebase messaging system where you just add your client ID and another key, and then that is immediately set up, and you just type in what you want to do. Say if you want any specifications on only send this push notification if they ask for this amount of users or if they ask for this product, and you just hit push and it sends it right through. and then you can get analytics on it as well. I'm going to wrap that up there, and I'm not going to reopen PowerPoint. So if you need any information from me, just feel free to find me. Please sure to check out other talks on Kinvey to dive even deeper through there. So I hope this gave you some information that you're interested to get started with Kinvey, and thank you very much for your time. Have a good one.